Welcome into On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton. Going to talk, Gerry, a little defensive line recruiting. This is right up your alley. Talk about the official visitors set, as well as who they're going to bring on campus this spring and hopefully get back for an official visit later on. Right now, and you can really look at defensive line a couple of different ways. Interior defensive line, then you can look at edge. There's even some guys that are kind of a mix between a 3 and a 5 technique. We can talk about them. But right now, let's talk about the 3 defensive linemen, true defensive tackles that have set up visits for the month of June. And then we'll go on and list the other guys. And those 3 defensive tackles will start with a guy from the state of Texas, Jamion Winfield, out of Richardson High School, a tremendous player. Somebody that you're very, very high on, Gerry. Yeah. He's one of 3 that has set up an official visit.
Yeah, and I think he's at the top of the board. In fact, I know he's at the top of the board. I mean, he's a tremendous talent. The guy that may end up being ranked a 5-star prospect in this D-line class is out of Meridian, Mississippi, moved into Richardson in July. So he's new to the state of Texas. He's new to Texas high school football, but he's not new to SEC. Growing up as a kid in the state of Mississippi. Texas is going to get him on campus either June 13th through 15th or 20th through 22nd. He's deciding which date right now. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, USC are in it for sure. I think some others, Georgia, are trying to get in it. LSU was in it, but Bo Davis left, so we'll see if their new D-line coach can get them in it. Again, but a guy that I think Texas feels like they are going to fight till the very end for Jamion Winfield. And he's expected on campus this spring. And again, it's one of those 2 dates. They're kind of working through the dates right now with family members to see which date's going to work best for them. Then there's Tico Crittenden out of the state of Georgia, Lithonia, 6'5", 300 pounds, can play over the ball, can play a 3. A guy that has Auburn very much in the mix. Georgia's in the mix. Florida's in the mix. And potentially Tennessee along with Texas. So he's coming in June 13th through 15th. He's going to be at Florida the week before. And then I think we'll make an official visit to Georgia and potentially Auburn or Tennessee as well. So a real SEC battle there on the defensive line. That is 2 of your guys. Then Dylan Berryman out of Ouachita Parish in Monroe, Louisiana. He's the over-the-ball player, guy that is solely an over-the-ball player. I saw him earlier in January, 6'2", about 320, 325 right now, just a block of granite. I think Texas is in a really good spot for him. I think they're in battles for Winfield and Crittenden. I think Texas is in a good spot for Berryman right now. He's coming in, obviously, June 13th through 15th as well. And he'll make some other visits around that. I think he's an interesting recruitment because the schools that have been on him longest, right now he wants to officially visit those guys like a U of H, right? He's kind of paying it forward a little bit to those guys who recruited him instead of going to visit Ole Miss. Even before Bo Davis left, he didn't have LSU scheduled for an official visit. Were some of those schools get him on campus? Probably. Could USC? Probably. But I think Texas is working from a position of strength there.
He's been to Austin multiple times.
Twice, yeah.
Including last year for a game. I remember him showing up. But that's 3 guys that are scheduled tentatively. And it looks like most likely all 3 of them on the 13th through the 15th, depending on what Winfield ultimately decides as well. But that's not the only guy. You can't just recruit 3 guys at defensive tackle and expect to get what you want. There are other guys out there. Let's start, and I know Matthew, our producer, has some video pulled up of Damari Simeon out of New Jersey. Big-time player, Gerry, that you are hearing Texas really recruiting pretty hard right now.
Yeah, and he's the guy that's been least talked about. We've been mentioning him for weeks on ontexasfootball.com. I don't think he's been mentioned much elsewhere, but he's a guy that the Texas staff really, really likes. He's explosive, disruptor. Ohio State recently offered him. Penn State, Notre Dame, all those schools are in on him. Those Midwest, Upper East Coast powers are in on him. And then you Texas A&M's offered him. Tennessee is very much in on him. He is scheduled to be at Texas unofficially April 12th, and that will be his first visit to Texas ever. And I do think from there, Texas will get an official visit with him. But again, one of the least talked about defensive linemen nationally in this class that I think is going to end up being one of the best prospects. I mean, Bobby, you can see they're strong, quick, natural long arm guy. He has got a lot of juice in that 6'3", 275-pound frame.
Plays with a flat back.
Yeah.
You can see he's athletic by the way he comes off the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Comes off the ball low. Gerry, these guys like Simeon, the rest of the ones we're going to talk about are expected to be on campus this spring.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't set up official visits yet. So the 3 that have set up official visits, we talked about. This next group, just to be clear, like Simeon, expected to be in sometime in the spring and then hopefully set up an official visit at some point in the future. Let's go next to Fort Myers.
Yeah.
A little southwest corridor of Florida a little bit, because there's 2 guys down there that Texas is hot on. James Johnson at North Fort Myers, and then Kendall Gorville, who's one of the top-rated prospects in the country out of Fort Myers proper. Tell us about those 2 guys and where Texas stands, because they're both expected into Texas in the next month or 2.
Yeah, and Kendall Gerville, they're buddies with Myron Charles. And that doesn't mean they're going to the same school, but what that does mean is there's somebody in Austin giving them really quality feedback on the Texas decision, and Kenny Baker. And that's what's going on there. Kendall Gerville, he can play over the ball. He can play in that 3. Look, Florida, I think, is got a little more juice in the state now, especially in those areas they've had success in than in the past. And that is Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and then southwest part of Florida. When Florida has juice, they do well in those areas. So I think Florida is a team to beat for Kendall Gerville, but Kenny Baker was down there in January. He's going to officially visit in June. They're working through those dates right now. It's between 1 or 2 dates. Georgia's going to get an official visit as well. I think Miami will probably get a visit out of Kendall Gerville. But again, Florida's going to be the team that Texas has to beat there. And again, at least having Myron Charles at Texas gives them somebody who's talking to the kid with really positive feedback about his decision. Then Kendall Gerville's friend, obviously, in North Fort Myers is James Johnson. He's more of that disruptor. He's more in that Damari Simeon role as a player, or I said as a prospect. He is 6'2", and a quarter, about 285. Again, USC, Georgia, Florida, Miami, all these guys are after both of these guys, Gerville and James Johnson. But Texas is expected to get James Johnson on campus, and they're working really hard to get that June official visit date. Where Texas is different, Bobby, with some of this is unless Sark changes his stance, he doesn't do May official visits. So you're sitting there having to really battle for 3 June weekends for official visits, June 6th, 8th, 13th, 15th, or 20th, 22nd, where a lot of other schools, they just want to get them on campus in May. They don't really care. Like Georgia's big recruiting weekend is that last weekend of May leading into June. Sark prefers the next 3 weeks of June. So Texas has a little more navigating. That road's a little bit more winding to get those kids on those 3 official visit weekends. But those are 2 guys that Texas, they really like, and would take both those guys today. But they are expected to visit this spring. And like Gerville will definitely make an official. I think James Johnson probably will as well.
I'm looking at it, and we've already talked about one player from Texas, 1 from Georgia, 1 from Louisiana, 1 from New Jersey, 2 from Florida. Got another one with the next state, Vodney Cleveland out of Birmingham, Alabama. Texas going nationwide for defensive tackles this year. Not surprising, given Texas's penchant to look for the best players no matter where they're at. But tell us a little bit about Vodney Cleveland and why you think Texas might have a chance there, Gerry.
Yeah, I think Texas has a good shot at an official visit here, which obviously when I say official visit, those guys are going to visit in the spring prior to the official visit as well, kind of like Charles and Sharmadin, some other guys in that class last year, Jamie French, Grayson Littleton, Zelsix. Those guys came to campus for the first time in the spring and followed up with official visits, just to be clear on what I'm kind of getting at with that. But Vodney Cleveland out of Birmingham, Parker, a teammate of Jordan Crawford, who signed with Auburn last year, one of the top D-tackle prospects in the country. I thought he was a great player. Vodney Cleveland, Kenny Baker went to see him in January. Returns are really positive right now for a spring unofficial visit and June official visit. Obviously, Auburn is real competition there. Alabama on some level. You have Florida that's expected to get official visit because Florida's recruited that Birmingham area pretty well over the years as well. So Texas in battles in these SEC region with you hear all the same teams popping up, and occasionally USC from outside the region or an Ohio State from outside the region. But what is really becoming apparent in this class, Bobby, is Florida and Texas are going to battle. Texas and Auburn are going to battle. Florida, Auburn, and Texas are going to battle. Florida, Auburn, Texas, and Georgia are going to battle on a lot of these guys, and Alabama and Tennessee on 2 or 3 of them. But really, you're going to hear a lot about Texas versus Florida, Texas versus Georgia, Texas versus Auburn, and that means you better recruit a lot of them. Everybody better recruit a lot.
Welcome to the SEC, baby.
Yeah.
Here's another one. I talked about adding Alabama as a state. Let's talk about one from Virginia by way of, I think, Germany. Valdon Sonnet, the defensive tackle out of Blue Ridge, Virginia. Tell us a little bit about him, because he's expected to come back in the spring. Like he came back with Hero Canoe, another guy that's actually at Texas now as a transfer portal guy, but is from that same international tree kind of guys that come over and train in Europe and then come over still working out with those guys. But tell us about Valdon Sonnet also.
Yeah, so he had originally, a couple of weeks ago, I said he'd probably want to make May official visits because he was going to head home. I think he's changed that up. He's now going to make June official visits before he goes back home to Sweden in July, I think, for a couple of weeks. The key there is Texas is actually working from behind there. I think Oklahoma and Florida are way out in front. They have June official visits. Texas is going to expect to get Sonnet back on campus this spring and potentially get him for that official visit. We'll see where that goes. There's connections to Georgia there. There's a lot of connections. Tennessee is very much in on that one. But Texas is working on Valdon Sonnet, but I do think they're working from behind on him more so than some other guys, which is a little surprising.
Last name that we want to mention at defensive tackle, at least for now.
Yeah.
Tiki Hola out of Bastrop, nearby school, 30 miles away out of Austin. What are you hearing there and Texas's pursuit of Tiki Hola?
Yeah, so USC has an official visit, I think June 6th through 8th. Then I expect Texas and Notre Dame to get official visits, and I think all 3 are real players. And Notre Dame made a real big push. Marcus Freeman went to the school in January. Obviously, Kenny Baker went through the school in January. USC obviously did as well. But those are the 3 schools we're hearing. That doesn't mean they're the only schools, but those are the 3 schools you hear most with Tiki. And the key there is Notre Dame and USC are going to make it tough on Texas just because the kid's from the Austin area, the Syntax area, really the Austin area. Doesn't mean this is a layup for Texas. This is one Texas is going to have to fight for. And he's got that June official visit set to USC already. And he's going to have Notre Dame. That date, I'm sure, will be publicized soon. And Texas is also expected to get an official visit. Obviously, he'll be the campus this spring as well. But it's one that I think Texas wants to win because he's a local kid. But I think it's one they're going to have to win. It's not a given.
Gotcha. And that's a lot. That happens.
Yeah.
I mean, even though they're in your backyard, you're going to have to fight them off.
Yeah.
And that's been proven. All right. There are a couple other guys that we wanted to mention that you wanted to talk about. They're more 3 technique /5 technique. So they could play outside the guard or over the tackle and be more of the 3-man defensive end types. Titan Davis out of St. Louis, Desmet in Missouri, and then also Bryce Perry White down in Georgia. Those 2 guys expected either to make visits in the spring or in the summertime at this point, right?
Yeah, and Titan Davis is interesting because he's not the biggest guy in terms of weight right now. He's probably around 245, 250. But Texas went to see him, and they offered him. They think he's going to grow into a 5. I mean, they think he's going to be a big frame guy from what I hear, like 280 plus, maybe even could be 300 pounds one day. His recruitment is more of a mystery, though. There's not as much on him right now on our end other than Texas is expected to get him on campus April 12th or April 14th, one of those 2 days. He is expected to be in Austin in April. That's going to start the process. He's never been to Texas before. Then if that visit goes well, a June official visit will happen. So he is more of one of those wild cards right now in recruiting, but Texas offered him a little later than some other guys in this class. So they're just getting in on him later, but he is expected again on campus in April, and we'll see where it goes from there. Bryce Perry Wright's totally different. Texas has been on him a while out of Buford, Georgia, as of a lot of teams. And you want to talk about your recruiting battles, Bobby. I mean, his visit list is Auburn, official visits, Auburn, May 16th, Clemson, May 30th, June 2nd, Georgia, June 6th through 8th, Texas, June 13th through 15th, and A&M, June 20th through 22nd. Like Texas A&M is really trying to focus on the state of Georgia more than ever than they have. And that is a real battle in recruiting, and one that, because of everybody coming in, kind of forces Georgia to really work hard. We say Texas has to work hard on a Tiki Hola. Georgia's going to be put in a position where they have to work hard. Some people think he'll end up at Georgia, but they're going to have to work hard in this recruitment. Clemson's very much in it. Texas has been recruiting him a long time. Auburn is very much in all those Atlanta guys they want to be in on, and then Texas A&M. So there's going to be 6 or 7 official visits in that recruitment, and that is going to be that's a long way to go with that one, and it's going to be a battle of attrition, I believe. But Texas does like Bryce Perry Wright quite a bit as a 5/3.
Here's one thing that I can say that's the list of names right now. There could be more added. We're constantly hearing new names or guys that transition off these lists and new guys come on.
Yeah.
But what you and I would both say, I think, Kenny Baker now has a full year as defensive tackle.
Yes.
Coach. His list today compared to a year ago at this time is much broader than what it was last year, because he was just getting to town. Bo Davis had kind of left at the last minute. Kenny Baker came in after the pro football season. He's got a little bit better, I don't want to say grasp, because that's not the word I'm looking for. He's got a bigger board.
Yes.
Now, more pieces to the puzzle that he's trying to figure out how that jigsaw kind of all fits together. And that's what we'll be tracking. All right, Gerry, anything else before we let people go today?
No, I think 3 or 4 D-line spots at the end of the day is what it's going to be in this class. So you would expect at the end of the day 8 to 10 official visitors for those 3 or 4 spots is kind of what we're thinking right now.
Got it. All right. That's Gerry Hamilton on defensive line, interior defensive line recruiting for the Longhorns. For Gerry and our producer, Matt Hutchinson, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good weekend. Hook 'em.